This is Gemara Menachos, Daf Yud Zayin. We like all learning today to be an incredible schos. Refuah Shalema for Mari Aaron David Ben Daba B'siyata Dishmaya. The incredible Koyach HaTorah should make the procedure go well and have a complete Refuah Shalema B'Karayv B'siyata Dishmaya B'Seich Sha'ar Chayle Yisrael. So we're holding on to Zayin Amid Beis. We're about 8 lines into the wide lines. We pulled up a little bit short. As they say, we'll make up some time in the air. So we're in the middle of discussing Shitas Rav. And we begin today with a kasha. Hopefully through the kasha, we will also chazer over what is Shitas Rava and get everything clear. Asks the Gemara, again 8 lines down. The first one on line is Likadesh. Says the Gemara, Masiv Rav Simi Bar Ashi. Achirim say, Hiktim mulim la'arilim kasha. If he proceeded, he was makdim arilim, those who do not have a bris milah. Hiktim mulim. If he put first mulim, those who have a bris milah, le'arilim, to those who don't have a bris milah kasha. These are kavanas that he's having b'shas the shchita of the karban Pesach. Karban Pesach, of course, is not allowed to be brought, not allowed to be involved by an aral, someone who doesn't have a bris milah. And therefore, if you have a machshava for someone who doesn't have a bris milah, that's a machshava's pigel. That's a machshava for someone who is possible. So you had a machshava first for someone that is kosher and mol, and then for an aral. Says the Brisa, what's the halacha? It's kosher. But hiktim ha'reilim lemulim, then it's going to be possible. Now, says the Gemara, v'kaimelon, and what do we hold? Tebechatzi matir pligi. That what's this machlekes? That the acherim are coming along in this brisa, that they're saying, klape achatzi matir. What is the status of pigol when you have half of something? That's the machlekes. That the chachamim are teaching us that it's not going to passel it up unless, like in the second case, hiktim harilim lemulim. But the fact that it's a chatzi amatir itself is not going to passel it up. So what do we see? We see that according to Shitas Chachamim, the shchita of the karban Pesach, even though it does not come the matir, even though it's not makdish anything, we see that the Chachamim are holding their own, and that is the kasha on Rava. Why? Because according to Rava, the Chachamim should have agreed that since the Avodah is not coming lahatir, since the Avodah is not coming lekadesh, therefore they should have agreed that a chatzi amatir should have been enough. And clearly they do not hold that. So Amar le Rava responds, Mi savris, dam bitzavar behema kadosh. Do you think the dam is kadosh in the neck of the animal? Dam sakin mikachim. What precise point, says the Gemara, is the dam an animal? Is the carbon give the kedusha of a carbon? It's bisakin. It's at the shas of the shchita, and therefore Rabbi Kadesh kiva lahatir dami, and therefore the avodah that comes to be mekadesh is like one that comes lahatir. So says the Gemara, we can't ask from any of these places because the shchita of any carbon is going to have a regular pigel. Why? Because it's indeed coming in some vein lahatir. We thought in the Havamina, we thought of the kasha. This is not called coming lahatir. Why? Because the animal already had kedusha. Says the Gemara, no. The shchita, the shas shchita is when the kedusha is imparted, and therefore it is at some level coming lahatir. Now the Gemara switches lanes. The Gemara now comes to ask on Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish said that haylacha, bringing to the mizbeach, is the same thing as haktara, and having a machshavas pigol while bringing the kamitza is not enough. It has to also be during the haktara. So Tashema says the Gemara, says the Braisa, when do we say that the carbon mincha becomes pagol? Through a machshava on the kemitza, not the levaina. Bekemitza ubematan kli ubehilach. So my love hilach dehaktara. So what do we see? That during the hilach itself, the pigel takes effect, even without the actual haktara, just the hilach on the way to the haktara is going to be enough. Says the Gemara, Loi, hilach dematan kli. What this means is the hilach to put it into the kli. You take the kavitza on the way into the kli. That's the hilach that we refer it to. Says Gemara, wait, but iachi b'matan kli ubehilach behilach matan kli mi b'yalei. The order of the Bryce is backwards. If hilach here doesn't mean the klas kloi lacha to the mizbeach, but rather hilach over here means what? Hilach means putting it into the kli shares. That's not something, so that comes first. Says the Gemara, haloi kasha. Tini, baloi laktara, baloi lacha. Says the Gemara, it's not a kasha, because tini achi, read it as that way. Ask the Gemara, baloi laktara, baloi lahalacha mi baile. What do you mean? The Brisa says the kohen comes to the burning. Should have said when he comes to the halacha. Nachamol says Gemara, haloi kasha. Why not? Kivan the halacha. Since the halacha that we're talking about, tzarech l'aktara, it's a tzarech of the burning hikar le'aktara. Says the Gemara, the Brisa says he puts the kaimetz on the mizbeach shtika quietly without any machshava. Hailach mi bayile. All the words are wrong. Finally, the Gemara sees kasha. This is indeed shver. So we're leaving over the kasha on Reish Lakish. And now we continue to another case of pigel, of something that's coming lahatir. Says the Gemara, Hekter shum shum lachol shum shim. Shum shum. We all know what shum shum is. That's sesame. But over here, what it means is a sesame-sized part of the kaimetz he would burn with the machshava to eat that same sesame size the next day. And he did this with every part of the kimitza and the levaina. Okay, interesting. Ad shekala kaimetz kulai, till the entire kaimetz is finished. So he consistently burnt dot by dot with a machshava to eat it dot by dot l'machar. Says the Gemara, Rav Chesed, Rav Amnun, Rav Sheishes, Chadamar Pegol, Chadamar Pasol, Chadamar Kosher. So we have a three-way machlekes. So what's this machlekes? Says the Gemara, let us suggest Leima Mandamar Pegol, Ki Rebbe Meir, Mandamar Pasol, Ki Rabban Mandamar Kosher, Ki Rebbe. So says the Gemara, if you hold it's Pegol, take Rebbe Meir, that says there's going to be Pegol, even if Chatzia Matir. Part of it, one particle. One that says it's possible, like the Rabbanon, and they argue on Rameir, says there's no pigel in this case. One that says it's kosher is Rebbe, who says that we don't combine different parts of the carbon. Says the Gemara Mimai. How do you know this is our machlokes? That Rameir said his din when it was a shear, when it was a normal case. That you only didn't have the machshava. Now on the flip side, in the whole thing, matir, kulei matir. After each and every dot, at the end of the day, the chisha bekulei matir, hachinami depigel. And thirdly, vakan lekama Rebbe asam el deloy hader malia me oisa avoida. Rebbe only said his din when he didn't complete during this exact avoida. So says the Gemara, in all three levels, this is not necessarily the way to explain this three-way machlekes. Ella rather suggests the Gemara another pshat. Maybe mandamar pegol divrei akol, mandamar apostle divrei akol, mandamar kosher divrei akol. What does that mean? Mandamar pegol divrei akol. Why? Because of derech achila bekach, v'derech haktar bekach. This is a normal way of doing it. And therefore, everyone's going to hold that it's not just a chatzi amatir, it's considered the whole zach, and therefore it's going to be picked. Ein derech achila b'kach. Vein derech haktara b'kach. V'avalikim mecha shel hektura. So the Gemara is explaining is that this is nothing to do with our old machlekes, Rabbi Rameir v'chulu. That this is a pure, isolated machlekes. Is it the derech? If you hold it's the derech, everyone holds it's pigel. If you hold it's not the derech, everyone holds it's not pigel, it's just puzzle. Manda markasher on the last line, what? Divrei call. That's it's so normal. It's even going to be. Excuse me, derech. I read it wrong. Because over derech haktar b'kach, but ve'in derech achila b'kach, and therefore it's not called that you did any level of machshava puzzle. Because what was the machshava puzzle? That you're going to eat this dot tomorrow. That's so not normal. It doesn't even puzzle up the carbon. Continues the Gemara. Amri, they said as we turn over to Yudzayin Amir Ale Charivid Pampedisa. The Charif, the sharp ones of Pampedisa. Rashi tells us who these are. Eva Avimi, Bnei Rechavat Pampedisa. Haktara Mifageles Haktara. That when you do the Haktara, the burning of the Kemitza, it can create pegol in the Haktara of the Levaina. And even according to the Rabbanan, as we just kept on seeing that the Rabbanan hold, there's no pigol b'chatzi. This is only if you have a kavana by part of it, and the levaina is fully intact. Whereas but over here, what are the Charav Pampedis are teaching us? The Chishlei b'levaina kima the Chishlei b'kulei matir dami. The fact that Aktar mifalgeles Aktar, that you have the same kavana by both the levaina and the kemitza, it's going to be considered as if it was a machshava b'kulei matir, and therefore unanimously it's going to be a problem. Says the Gemara, my Rava brings a raya. What did our Mishnah back in Daf Yud Beis teach us? So my love, what did the Mishnah mean? Say Rava. Haktar to me dahanach. Ma hanach zok to Rava. Let's learn from the context that the Mishnah clearly means that we're handling Haktara Dumya Dahanach, similar, the Haktara of the Kaimet, similar to the other Avaidais. That one Malhanach bin Lechel bin Lahaktir, just like the other Avaidais is Pegol. Whether you did it Lechel the Shirayim or to burn the Levaina, Chutz Zmanai. So to have Haktara of the Kmitza bin Lechel bin Lahaktir. That's what Rav is right from our Mishnah. It says the Gemara Loi. Hanach ben Lechel ben Lahaktir. Haktara is Lacholin, Lahaktir Loi, therefore you can't bring a Raya. So this is the din of the Charifa, the Pampedisa, that Haktara Mifageles, Haktara. Says the Gemara, in as much as the Charif, the sharp ones of Pampedisa, hold as such, but Yosef Ramanashia, 4 lines to the white lines, and he disagrees. Ramanashia was sitting, Bargado Kamei, Abaye. Yosef Kamer Mishheder Chista in Haktara Mifageles Haktara. So we have a straight up machlekes, whether on the top line Haktara Mifageles Haktara, or the second to last line before the wide lines of Ein Haktara Mifageles Haktara. And now says Abaye Vafilu Rameir Damer Mifalgim B'Chatzi Amatir. And now they take it to the opposite extreme. That even Rameir, who holds generally yes Mifaglim B'Chatzi Amatir. That is, says the Gemara Animili, that is only Hechdechishevu B'Shirayim De Koimetz Matir. Today, when you have the kavanah for it's Matir. Avalacha the kaimetz la matir de levainu. But over here, the kaimetz de levainu, they're not one coming to permit the other. La matir de levainu. Loi matzi mefagale, says that by the opposite extreme, it's not going to create the pegel. Amrle Abaye. So Abaye responds, again, I keep saying Abaye said this. He said this over Lifnei Abaye, Kameid Abaye. So Amrle Abaye responds, Ani Mari, answer me. Mishmei de Rav. When Rav Chisda said this over, was it in the name of Rav? Amrle in. Indeed, it's Marnami Araya, Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Ravi, Nektum V'legis, Hak, Tara. Amar Rav Yaakov, Aridi Mishmei De Abaye. Now that we figured out who said it, they said in front of Abaye. Abaye asked, they said, is it Rav Shita? And he said, yes. Says the Gemara, Afanan, Nami Tanina, Rav Yaakov, Aridi, Mishmei De Abaye says a similar thing, Shachem Kvasim. Excuse me, Lechom Mimenu Lamachar, Hu Pigol, V'Chaverei Kasha. Lechom Mechaver Lamachar, then Shneim Ksherim. My time, Olam Yishav, they keep it the Lav Mater Dideu, the same Yisoid. What's the Yisoid of those who are arguing on the Charivit Dvampadisa? Why do you say Ein Aktar Mifagel is Aktara? Because it's not Aktara Didei. Therefore, we see again Nachamal, since Lav Aktar Dideu, Lo Mati Mifagele. Responds the Gemara, Lo Yihas Mudlaik Vebechad Mano. By the Sheikh of Asim, you can't bring me a raya. Why? Because over there it was not placed into one mana, into one kli. But by the mincha, maybe the fact that it's placed into one kli, that's enough of a reason to say it's kichan manu, so if you can't bring a raya from the Sheikh Kivasim. Amar Rav Hamnuna, but again, it's not a kasha on Abaye per se, says the Gemara. It's just not a rayo. Amar Rav Nuna Hamilsa Ivla Li Rabbi Chanina. This following was told to you by Rabbi Chanina V'tikli B'kulei Talmudai, and it's equal to all my learning. It's like a favorite. Hekter Kaimis Lahaktir Levaina Lechol Shirayim Lamachar Pigol. If you burn the kaimet with a machshava to burn the levaina and to eat the shirayim the next day, it's pigol mai kamashmalon. Says the Gemara, what is Rav Huna teaching us? So say straight. You burnt the kaimetz to burn the levaina. Shirayim, part of it lemacher. And he tervayu goes to kamashmalon and return teaches both of these. Didn't lema hektar kaimetz lach to levaina. So says the Gemara, what is the precise, trying to narrow in with precision, is the chiddush of Rav Huna? Says the Gemara, he does not hold like Abaye. He holds like the Charifit Bumpadisa. Excuse me, he holds like Abaye, not like the Charifit Bumpadisa. And so what? So now we see a chiddush. So what's the chiddush? That v'shayni acha, the chiddush is that this case is different. Why? The pashlei machshava bekulei mincha, because the machshava, the pigol machshava spreads to the entire mincha. That the chiddush of Rav Hamnuna is that even though in a vacuum, each of these machshavas can't do anything, when you put them together in tandem, then they do mess it up. One final halacha about pigol tanetane kameid Rav Yitzchak Barada hekter kaimes lachol shirayim. The divrei hakol pigol says in front of Rav Yitzchak Barada, if you burn the kamitza to eat the shirayim the next day, everyone holds its pigol. Says I've a miflik palik. What do you mean divrei hakol? Rabbeir, the Rabbanon, this is their machlokes. Elaima, the divrei hakol pasul. Okay, everyone holds its pasul, and the shayla is there pigol? Valimar is a pigol v'Rameiri. So why don't you just say it's machlokes Rameir the Chachamim? So tell me it's pigol and it's Rameir. Tell me everyone holds its pasul. Just say one din. Answers the Gemara. Tana divrei hakol isna uye. The Brisa said divrei hakol, and then he just didn't remember it's divrei hakol pasul, divrei hakol pigol. So that's what we fix it. And this is a big yisoid. Pigol pasul mechov lei harezev divrei hakol mechov lei. And we remind ourselves that Gan's Talmud Bavli was taught Torah Shabal Peh. And therefore, when a Gemara changes, says, oh, Tini, change this, change that, it's because they didn't remember what was said. So it's illogical, says the Gemara, it's illogical to mess up the din. But they remember who said it. Everyone holds this. That you remember. Oh, this was Shitas Rameir. That you don't remember. So if you remember that everyone said it, you're just not going to remember. Was it pasul? Was it pigol? And that's what we change. Hadron alach hakaimet es ha mincha. And we go weiter as the daf does not stop for nobody. Says the Mishnah, this should hopefully sound familiar by now. Someone brings the kemitza. Someone brings the kemitza with a kavanah. Someone who brings a kemitza with a kavana to eat something which is not normal to be eaten, which is the kemitza, which should be burnt. Or lahaktir, he has a kavana to burn. Tavashin darkei lahaktir, the shirai which is supposed to be eaten. What's the halacha? Kasher Rav Eliezer paisel. Lachol davar shedavar darkei lechol, the shirai. Lahaktir davar shedarkei lahaktir, the kemitza. Pachas mikizayis, if the machshava that was had his pachas make his ayis kash lechol kechatzi zayis akter chatzayis. You have 2.5 machshava is kash sheina chilav aktara mitzdarf in the two do not mitzdarf. Says the Gemara. Amar Reb Asi Amar Rav Yechon my time of the Reb Eliezer. Reb Eliezer in the Mishnah said that in the first case it's going to be possible. Says the Gemara. My time of Rabbi Eliezer, where does this come from? Amar Kra. Vim achal yachal mivas zevach shlama v'shtei achilas like us midaber. Him achal yachal tu achilas. Echad achilas adav echad achilas mizbeach. And as by now we already know, achila doesn't mean consumption. Doesn't have to mean physical eating. Consumption includes burning, includes ridding of it, or not ridding in the negative sense, but just burning it on the mizbeach. Achilas adav echad achilas Kishem shemechashvin b'achilas adam, kach mechashvin b'achilas mizbeach. Kishem shemechashvin b'achilas adam l'achilas adam, u'me'achilas mizbeach l'achilas mizbeach. Kach mechashvin b'achilas adam mizbeach, mechilas mizbeach la'adam. That the chiddush of Rav Eliezer is from the fact that Torah says v'achal yachal mibas zevach shlamif. 2 types of achila. What are 2 types of achila? 2 types of achila are what? Achilas adam and achilas mizbeach. And the chiddush is that the 2 machshavas could go back and forth interchangeably. My time, why does Rav Eliezer hold this? From the fact that the Torah utilizes the word achila, v'imachal ya'achel, klabe haktara. It's burning. Why are you calling burning eating? Says Rav Eliezer, you know why? To teach us that the consumption, the eating of the mizbeach, in a way is similar to the eating adam of an adam that the machshava goes back and forth. Rabbanan, what do the Rabbanan say for the fact that the Torah utilizes the word b'lashon achila? Says the Gemara, turn over to Yizayim Abayis. That the chiddush of the Torah is to teach us there's no difference whether you're machshava, we're creeping into the person's mind, say the chachamim. And the Torah is teaching us, what were you thinking? Were you thinking achila? Were you thinking haktara? Klapi the adam, klapi the mizbeach. That's the chiddush of the pasuk. That either way, your machshava is considered a machshava, and it will pass. Inami machila begizayis avaktar begizayis. Another chiddush is to teach us both of them are a din of a gizayis. Ula'olam achila the orcha mashma. But the implication of the pasuk is the normal matter of achila. That means that it has to be something shedarkei lechol, like the shirayim, davar shedarkei lahaktir, like the kaimetz, and say the chachamim. The 2 cannot be interchanged. Rav Eliezer, how does Rav Eliezer respond? On the 4th line of Yitzayin Amebeis, Im ken nechtav rachman emachal ye'achel, inamim yochal ye'achel, my he'achel ye'achel. The terminology of the pasuk is funny. Shemas mina wa tarati. Shlomo says you can learn out both dinim. So that is the machlekes Rav Eliezer and the Chacham. Omar le Ravasi, Rav Zir le Ravasi. V'yitayim de Rav Eliezer mishamachi. If you're telling me the reason Rav Eliezer is because of the pasuk, kares nami lechayiv. So it's a din d'oraisa. We learned it from a pasuk, and if we learn it from a pasuk, there should be kares. Okay, maybe there is. Va'atu damet, you said Mishmei to Rabbi Yochanan that what? So why not if we learn it from a pasuk? Amar le Rav Asi says back to Rav Zera. Tanohi, it's machlekes Tanoim. I'll leave it to Rav Elazar. Indeed, you are correct in your assumption that if we learn it from a pasuk, it's going to be daraisa. And guess what? There are Tanoim that hold as such. Titania, as we learned in Abraisa, Sheikh says, "Evach lishlos midamay lemachar, laakter mibasaray lemachar, lecha meimurav lemachar, kash." Rav Lezer paisel, laniach midamay lemachar, Reda paisel, Rav Yehuda paisel. Amar Rav Eliezer, Afizu Rav Eliezer, Amar Rav Elazar. Let's get it right. Afizu Rav Eliezer, paisel v'chachamim akshirim. Rav Yehuda aliba deman. So says the Gemara. Whom is Rav Yehuda going according to? Elos, you know what Rav Yehuda is doing? Says the Gemara, Rav Yehuda must be going within the shita of Rav Eliezer. And V'amar Rav Elazar af bezu Rav Eliezer paisav chacham machshirim. Rav Elazar hainu Rav Yehuda. So what exactly is going on over here? It sounds like Rav Elazar says the same thing as Rav Yehuda. So how do you explain this brayso? Says the Gemara, Givaldik. Elalav, there is a machlekes Rav Elazar and Rav Yehuda. You know what that machlekes is? Kares ikabe nayu. That's the machlekes. The Rav Yehuda savrlaniach psula ba'alma. Rav Yehuda holds it's merely possible. Banach kares nami mechayiv. But in the earlier case in the brayso, there's going to be kares. V'asar v'las l'meimar. I divide the pasal ve'ein by kares. So the Gemara proves, as Rav Asi responded to Rav Zera, that indeed you are correct in your assumption that if Rav Eliezer learned it out from a pasuk, it ought to be a din in deraisa bikares, and there are those who hold as such. It's machlekes Tanaim. Says the Gemara, loi. No, tkuli amakares. Everyone agrees kares lek. Everyone agrees that there's going to be no kares. V'hach on the brayso gimel machlekes badavar. There's a three-way machlekes. Tanikam savar banach pligi. Hanach pligi. And you know what? Let's stop over here. We already overstayed our time, as we'll say. We'll stop with the raya, and we'll pick it up tomorrow from the teretz b'siyata d'ishmaya.